Hi, I'm Holly Fee. I work with Reactivation Massage LLC in Central New Jersey, and I'm here to talk about how you can help yourself by helping others. This is going to be a little bit of a different talk. I'm going to open up and talk about my personal growth in my life, the things that I've achieved, and how I did that I find to be unique and remarkable. I get a little bit of emotional. It's nothing I've shared publicly before. And I'm using this because I know it could help others, especially healers. We have an innate ability to tap into an energy field that the everyday person cannot. And I truly believe that that is what has brought me to become the person I am today. I started off years ago as a teenager very sick. I was anorexic. I didn't know why. My family didn't know why, but we did know that I needed help. It got to the point where I could not get out of bed. I was supposed to go into the carrier clinic, which was an inpatient facility. However, financially, my family couldn't afford it. So I overheard my parents talking, and I went downstairs and I told them that I could overcome this myself. I just needed a therapist to guide me. So I spoke to a therapist for a few months, and it got to the point where I could eat again. It was really about control of the situations that I couldn't control what was going on around me, so I controlled what was going into me, which is a lot of eating disorders and self-harm tactics. So surprisingly enough, though, I did not realize that just going through therapy, you could overcome such a disorder. Usually it follows you for life. Now, I do, when I have hardship, my body has that memory. It turns out that I was anorexic for many years. I only remember a few months of it. However, what had happened was whenever I get super stressed, really overwhelmed, I will go back to not needing to eat. But I can acknowledge that. I'm aware of it. And I contact my doctor, and they give me supplements to take to ensure that I'm getting the nutrients I need, and I ensure that I'm eating. So it was surprising to me that I was always drawn to therapy, always drawn to counselors and healers, those that can give insight on the psyche. And throughout my life, I'm over 40 now, and I have to say I have spoken to, connected with, paid for, bartered with over 20 different healers, counselors, therapists, just to talk to them, to get involved, to know a different aspect of life. And I do use myself as a guide in learning. A lot of things I don't understand why I went through something when I was able to go through it so easily, which is awful to say because people struggle through these issues and become, very devastating in their life. Yet within a few months, I was able to overcome my anorexia. And I don't believe that that therapist had it accurate on why I was anorexic, which I was dyslexic as well as a youth, and it turns out I'm not. It all came down to being molested as I was younger. That I found out several years ago through dreams, and I went through therapy on that as well. It was hard because I couldn't come out and say it, because another one of my loved ones was also being, we think, molested, and was taking a very hard toll on me personally to watch this individual go through it and not being able to help. And then the memories came back to me. And here, I'm a very good massage therapist, healer, working hard, and yet my world is just crashing. Everything was, I was numb. I was completely numb. I didn't understand if maybe these memories were possibly because of all the books, of like all the psychology I went through, um, of what my loved one was experiencing, that I was just having these dreams. Well, it turns out that it's impossible for your body to actually have these types of dreams and these types of feelings. Um, and so I sat down and I went over the memories that I did have with a therapist. And although it did hurt my marriage and it did, um, make me sidestep a little bit with my clients, I did even conquer that tremendously. It didn't bring me down to a point where I couldn't live. And then as I was deciding to go to college is when I found out I wasn't dyslexic. My whole school age, I was in special classes, given extra time on tests, because I was told I was dyslexic. Well, I was not dyslexic. It all came back to being molested as I was younger. That's what the eating disorder was about. That's why I couldn't pay attention in class. I couldn't control what was happening to me, and nobody saw the signs. And it wasn't their fault that they didn't see the signs. I believe there was a greater reason why I went through all this. When I was 20, after going through the dyslexia, the anorexia, not knowing I was molested yet, I met my first husband, and he was in the military. So my mind, I thought, here I have it. It's great. I have love. I'm going to go travel. We're going to get married. Everywhere around me wasn't mapping up the puzzle that I had in my head. I knew I loved him. I knew I wanted to get married. Looking back now, I know it was an scapegoat. He was not the person for me. We did divorce after a year of marriage. He was mentally and physically abusive. I was on my own. Found out I was pregnant after the divorce. I went ahead with the pregnancy, which I am beyond grateful for. But each one of these was a tremendous, tremendous struggle. I would have never thought that someone could be abusive after being with them for so long and then being fine. Obviously, there were red flags. I ignored them. The puzzle pieces weren't fitting because I chose to ignore the fact that they weren't fitting. I mean, even to the point where the church doors wouldn't open for my father when he was trying to walk me down the aisle. And they waited for a while. But now I look back, I know it was all for a reason. I wanted a scapegoat because it came back down to getting out of the environment, getting out of the area that I had been molested in. At the time, I didn't know any of it. At the time, all I knew was I was going through the motions of life, and yet I still had this sense of feeling strong. And with all of it, the anorexia, the dyslexia, the shame, the feeling of not being smart enough to have an actual career or business, to going through someone who mentally abuses you is so difficult. And then on top of it, having these severe migraines where I'd be vomiting for days and then completely unable to move for days after that for the aftermaths. And what happened on one of my severe migraines during my marriage with this particular individual, I called my mother and I said, how did you do this? How did you raise 4 children, have a career, go to college, and have these migraines that make you not want to live? And she told me she just prayed and she got through it. And something clicked within that phone call. And I have to say, it must have been some type of divine presence, because within that moment, my migraines changed. My mind shifted, and I have never had migraines like that again. That was over 20 years ago. And still, I did not know my past. However, I knew migraines weren't going to be in my future. I still got them, but they weren't so tremendous. They weren't life-altering, where I couldn't continue to focus on what I was doing. I could take medicine, get through the day, still treat clients. That marriage ended. That life changed. There's so many stories within stories, and so many struggles where I had many issues with my pregnancy, my first child. Didn't think that the child was going to be able to actually be a whole fetus. It was rough, but I got through it. And we moved past it, and I have this amazing, amazing person and soul in my life now. And I remarried. I had another child who was born without his fibula. And I feel that what I went through with my first child helped me go through what I needed to go through for my second child. We chose to amputate his little adorable foot, and he walks around with a prosthetic now. He's the light of my life, as well as my other child, and I can't believe that I've been so blessed. But the struggles of going through all that and still maintaining the ability to work with clients and get hit with these waves of additional memories, it was very, very difficult. And the only thing I could think of that kept me going was these little divine times that really changed my life. So that moment I'll never forget, sitting on the bed, talking to my mother, and wondering how she lived with these horrific, horrific migraines. And that the energy just shifted around me. And here I became a therapist that focused on migraines, and a great one. So I, engaged in that, and I started working with my clients, focusing on healing their migraines, or at least reducing their suffering. My children, I had a very difficult time with both my pregnancies. They were not fun pregnancies. One was without a father, and the other one, having issues physically. And I did not do well with pregnancy. I was very, very sick. However, I made it through. And again, I would tap into an energy that I didn't even know I was tapping into at the time to get me through those moments. When I found out that a family member that I cared about was being harmed, and we didn't know, and we still don't know from who, what, when, but we know that it changed that person's life forever, and I was their caregiver. And my memories came back from me being molested as a child. I went numb. I confided in my mother, who would instantly forget the day after I told her. I would then tell her again, and she would forget. And it got to the point where I couldn't tell her anymore. After the 5th time, I said I was done. I can't do it. She promised she would remember. So I told her again. And she did. The next day I called her. I was like, do you remember? She said, I remember. How I overcame being molested, my entire life made sense. My entire life as a healer made sense. My entire life of being around the people that I was attracting made sense. I used my first husband as a scapegoat, even though my family didn't really care for him. There were red flags there. I should have known better. I wanted to get out of the living situation I was in. I didn't want to have anywhere near the environment that I felt unsafe in, even though I didn't have any memory of it. The energy was there. The energy was within me, and I knew I needed to be away from it. The anorexia obviously was triggered by not being able to control what was happening to me. But I've been able to help so many clients that has a similar issue, or an issue that it stems from. And I do believe that each and every one of these issues was never meant for me. They were meant so I could help others. And the only reason I can come to that conclusion is because I was able to move past them, and I was able to feel the divine energy when I needed to get me to move past it. So I know this is much different than your talk than a lot of other healers will be giving you. But the whole point of it is how I became who I am now. And through these very difficult hardships, it wasn't until I created my own practice and started going through and experiencing Reiki and the energy and talking to more healers and honing into that, did I notice I could tap into that power so easily, tap into that energy so easily. And my whole body would tingle, and things would shift in my mind and my body. And even after remarrying, things just weren't right. It wasn't for the right reasons. We weren't meant for each other. I'm now going through my second divorce, which is hard, very difficult. The kids are being amazing, but we just weren't the right fit for each other. It doesn't mean it wasn't meant to be. We were meant to have my son, but the energy, it wasn't fitting. The puzzle pieces around me, they weren't fitting. Everything was breaking. I'd have crystals around my house that would break. I would have discussions that I couldn't fathom the understanding. It felt like I was talking to someone that just was in a different world than I was. My family was thinking things were off with me. It always came down to maybe I'm the one, maybe I'm the issue. I'm the one causing all this drama. And I always had someone that I could count on. My friends, my family, a lot of my clients that we're so close to because I've been with them for so many years, and I would be open and talk to them about everything I was going through. And they helped me tremendously. And I realized after months, and this is more of a recent realization and why I really wanted to do this talk, was that had I stopped and had I learned about the energy when I was younger, about this divine presence around me that each and every one of us could tap into, I would have known and been able to read each and every one of those situations and changed it. Instead, I had to suffer through it, only to come out the other end by the string of my teeth, but pretty much without too many scars. Now, people that go through these types of scenarios that are so heartbreaking and life-changing, the scars run incredibly deep, immensely deep. And it will alter your life. And I believe it has altered mine, but I don't believe the scars are deep. I believe that I was put through each and every of these circumstances, and there's so many more that I haven't even touched on. I really want to write a book one day over everything that has happened. It's just been a remarkable life of hardships and wins and more hardships and involving hardships. But there was one thing that has always been consistent: that divine presence, whatever you want to call it. It's energy to me. It's God, it's Buddha, it's an energy, a frequency that we can all tap into if you're taught to. And a lot of meditators do this. They close their eyes, they get into this very Zen place, and they feel the tingles and the relaxation, and they just feel this overwhelming love. And I talk about love a lot when I'm with my clients, and I talk about energy a lot when I'm with my clients. And I do a reactivation technique that's reactivating the muscles where they're not getting the energy they need to perform the best. But really all I'm doing is tapping into that energy, that divine love. And if you do everything and anything with that purpose in mind, everything always works out. It always does. Whenever I'm low in money or low in spirit, I tap into that energy. And lo and behold, the check comes through, or clients pick up, my energy's lifted and I go for a walk. Someone calls me and makes me giggle. My son wants a tickle fight. There's so many little things, but they're all little blessings. So what I've learned now to do to maintain my clients, even though you're going through such difficult times, as we all do, especially now with COVID, especially now with the flu season upon us, times are very much changed, and yet we are still working. And how do you shed all that trauma? It's real trauma, emotional trauma that you need to push aside so you can help the person that's now lying on your massage table. What I do is a technique that I gathered through multiple healers. And before I go into a room, I close my eyes and I ask for the divine white light of third heaven. And I ask it to embrace each and every one of my chakras. I ask it to submerge every one of my cells and to reach far down into the earth and bring up Mother Earth and her energy. And the two mix. They mix beautifully throughout every cell of my body, every layer of my aura, every single chakra up to the highest of the heavens. And I am to hold this energy. It is to protect me so that no one else's energy can affect me, and my energy cannot affect those that I come in contact with. However, the divine energy of our guides and our angels and of Mother Earth can do the healing that needs to be done. Whether it's guiding me to the proper part of the body that the client needs, whether it's an emotional release that the client needs, whether or not it's a conversation the client needs to talk about, it all comes out. And it's whatever is needed to give that client the best session that they can while they're in my presence. Sometimes I do this when I start my day, even if I'm not seeing clients. I do it for my children. Sometimes I do it when I'm going in the grocery store. I'm very empathic, so I like to bubble up, I call it, and it helps my children understand. When we're going to the mall, especially around the holiday season, we bubble up. They're both very empathic. And what that means is that they take on energy that they themselves don't see or understand because they're young. And I believe my whole life, that's what I was doing. I could sense the energy and I knew when it wasn't right. And that's really what brought me to my second divorce, which is still proceeding. The energy wasn't right. Not that neither one of us did anything wrong. I knew it wasn't right. And what was best for me was to leave. And I was leaving a home that I absolutely loved. And it was a very hard decision. I had children. I knew it was going to be a major change and a major financial struggle. But when I sat down and I looked at my puzzle pieces, I knew that marriage, not only did I have an illness now that was an autoimmune disorder diagnosed by Johns Hopkins that did not have a very favorable outcome, that was riddled with cancers. My future was not looking good. And yet I believed if I continued down the path I was headed by taking medications, by doing the yoga and doing the meditations and the healing techniques that I was told to do to help manage this disorder, I could get by, but my life would be short. Or I could listen to my guides. I could finally give in. I could give in to what the energy is telling me and leave. And so I took that leap of faith that I knew throughout my whole life, in my inner being, all the answers were always there. I just wasn't listening. So now I'm listening. And I'm happy to say that I'm in an apartment with my two beautiful children who are doing wonderful. And we have ups and downs, but I no longer have the symptoms of my autoimmune disorder. And that happened almost within a month of leaving the environment that was making me sick. And it wasn't the person that was making me sick. It wasn't the home that was making me sick. It was the energy around me saying this wasn't right for me. I don't know why yet. And I'm not in a rush to find out. Lately, I've been living day by day. And at the moment, I'm unable to do massage therapy because I am helping a loved one who, again, is suffering through mental illness, which is very hard to overcome. And I'm here for that person, and I understand it because I've been there. And the only thing I can do for them is to be here, to have open arms, to love them, to read the energy, to know what I'm doing is right, and to understand that even if it doesn't make sense financially or career-wise, if the energy is pulling me to do something, it's about damn time I listen. And this talk, I believe, is essential because I want everyone to start listening to your inner self. The only way you're going to help your clients and your loved ones and yourself is if you start listening to your inner light. All you have to do is close your eyes because the answers are all within you. And if I could overcome so much hardship, which I've only tapped into on this 30-minute talk, I am absolutely 100% positive that each and every one of you could do the same. And it's only going to make you a stronger healer, a stronger friend, a stronger mother, a stronger sibling, a stronger father, and a stronger soul on this earth. As if you listen to the energy around you, the energy that you're made up of, and you follow your heart and do everything from your heart with the divine love behind you. And you've just created an abundance for yourself that will take you on the most amazing ride of your entire life. And it's going to be your life. So thank you for listening to me, and thank you for allowing me to share my story with you. That is my signal that our talk is over. Be blessed.